The ancient city of Ur was a jewel of Mesopotamia. It was a center of power, knowledge, and advanced culture. For a long time, it was the heart of the Anunnaki dominion on Earth, a place where cosmic travelers and terrestrial beings coexisted under a fragile peace. However, this stability was shattered by ambition. The leader, Marduk Andromi Necrometon, a powerful and determined figure, rose to prominence. His vision for the Anunnaki Empire was one of singular control, a vision that clashed dramatically with the existing order led by figures like Enlil and Enki. The power struggle that ensued was not just a political disagreement. It was a cataclysmic conflict that would reshape human history and scatter the Anunnaki leadership across the globe, sending ripples through time we are still trying to understand today. The takeover of Ur was swift and decisive. Marduk's forces swept through the grand city, establishing a new regime. This event, which some scholars place around 2024 BCE, wasn't just a coup, it was the end of an era. The established Anunnaki factions could not remain. They were faced with a stark choice: submit to Marduk's absolute rule or flee to preserve their own ways and knowledge. This forced migration is what I like to call the Great Anunnaki Diaspora. Different groups, each with their own loyalties and specialized knowledge, packed up what they could and scattered to the winds. Enlil's camp, for example, is said to have moved east, while others ventured into the Americas. It was a mass exodus of beings who were considered gods by the local populations. Among those who fled was a key group led by the brilliant scientist and scribe Thoth, who many identify with the Anunnaki prince Enki. Thoth Enki was a keeper of sacred knowledge, a master of genetics, astronomy, and architecture. He represented a faction dedicated to uplifting humanity, to sharing wisdom rather than hoarding it for power. He saw Marduk's rise as a turn toward tyranny and darkness. Refusing to bend the knee, he gathered his most loyal followers, scientists, engineers, and scribes. They embarked on a journey westward, seeking a new land where they could rebuild and safeguard the ancient secrets from those who would misuse them. Their destination was a fertile land along a great river, a place the locals called Kemet, which we now know as Egypt. This journey was not a simple stroll across the desert. It was a carefully planned expedition. Thoth Enki and his followers brought with them not just their people, but also their technology and their vast library of knowledge, which some legends say was stored on crystalline tablets. They traveled across the Sinai Peninsula, following ancient trade routes and ley lines of terrestrial energy. Their goal was to find a place that was not only resource-rich, but also spiritually significant. Egypt, with its mighty Nile River, its geographic isolation, and its pre-existing spiritual traditions, was the perfect candidate. This was not an invasion, but a migration of refugees, albeit very advanced ones, looking for a safe harbor to continue their great work in a world that was rapidly changing around them. When Thoth Enki and his Anunnaki group arrived in the Nile Valley, they did not find an empty land. Egypt was already home to a sophisticated and spiritually advanced people. These were the Seres Essene Egyptians, a culture with a deep connection to the earth and the cosmos. At the heart of their society were the Magi king lines, a priestly caste of rulers who were the guardians of ancient wisdom passed down through generations. These Magi were not just kings. They were stargazers, healers, and mystics. They understood the subtle energies of the land and believed their lineage was sacred, descended from star beings who had visited in a much earlier epoch. Their authority came from this sacred heritage and their profound spiritual insight. The arrival of Thoth Enki's group could have easily led to conflict. Here you have two powerful groups, both with claims to divine knowledge and a right to lead. But instead of war, something truly remarkable happened, a blending of cultures. The Magi king lines recognized the advanced knowledge of the newcomers. They saw in Thoth Enki not a conqueror, but a fellow traveler on the path of wisdom. Likewise, Thoth Enki respected the deep-rooted spiritual traditions of the Seres Essene. He understood that their connection to the land was something his technology could not replicate. It was a meeting of minds, a fusion of extraterrestrial science and terrestrial mysticism that would lay the foundation for a golden age. This collaboration was a careful process of integration. The Anunnaki brought incredible skills in engineering, genetics, and governance. They knew how to organize large-scale societies and build monumental structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The Magi, on the other hand, brought their profound understanding of the human spirit, the cycles of life and death, and the esoteric energies of the planet. They taught the newcomers about the importance of Ma'at, the concept of balance, order, and truth. Together, they began to create a new, unified culture. This was not a takeover, but a partnership. They shared their knowledge, their traditions, and most importantly, their bloodlines. This historic merger is the key to understanding the origins of ancient Egypt's greatness. It wasn't just one group or the other, it was the synergy between them. The stories and myths of this period speak of a time when gods walked among mortals, teaching them the arts of civilization. These gods were likely the Anunnaki leaders like Thoth Enki. The mortals were the native Egyptian people. The Magi king lines served as the perfect bridge between the two. The result was a hybrid civilization, more advanced and spiritually attuned than anything that had come before it. This unique blend set the stage for the rise of the first ruling families of Egypt, long before the first officially recorded dynasty. The fusion of the Anunnaki and the Magi king lines was not just a cultural exchange, it was a biological one. Through carefully arranged unions, the two groups began to merge their lineages. This created a new ruling class with a unique genetic heritage. This was the birth of the Scarab kings. They were the first true pharaohs of the pre-dynastic era, rulers who possessed the combined wisdom of the Magi and the advanced physiology of the Anunnaki. Their blood was considered sacred, a direct link to the stars. This divine right to rule wasn't just a story. For the ancient Egyptians, it was a biological fact, a truth carried in the very essence of their rulers' DNA. The symbolism of the scarab beetle, or Khepri, became central to this new dynasty for a powerful reason. The ancient Egyptians were keen observers of nature. They watched the scarab beetle roll a ball of dung across the ground, lay its eggs within it, and then bury it. Later, new beetles would emerge from the ball as if from nothing. They saw this as a potent symbol of spontaneous creation, resurrection, and celestial cycles. The beetle rolling its ball mirrored the sun being pushed across the sky by the gods. For the Scarab kings, this symbol represented their own story, a new royal line emerging from the union of two powerful sources, reborn into something greater and destined to guide the journey of their people. The stories of the Anunnaki gods also began to merge with Egyptian beliefs. The Sumerian tales of family drama and cosmic battles were adapted to fit the new cultural landscape. Enki, the wise water god, became associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom, but also with Osiris, the god of the afterlife and resurrection. Osiris's story of being a benevolent king, murdered by his jealous brother Set, and resurrected by his devoted wife Isis to father a divine heir, Horus, was a powerful allegory. It mirrored the Anunnaki power struggles, particularly the conflict between the Enki or Osiris faction and the Enlil or Marduk faction, which became embodied in the figure of Set. These myths were teaching tools, encoding the history of their divine ancestors for future generations. This is why the Scarab kings were seen as living gods on Earth. Their DNA was special. It was believed to contain the starfire or celestial essence of their Anunnaki ancestors, giving them enhanced longevity, intelligence, and psychic abilities. This was the blood of the gods that flowed through their veins. They were not just political leaders. They were intermediaries between the heavens and the earth. Their role was to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic balance, a task only someone with their unique genetic and spiritual makeup could perform. Their very presence was a testament to the sacred union that had birthed their civilization, a living bridge to a divine past. The deification of these early rulers was a natural outcome of their extraordinary origins. In a world where the line between the physical and metaphysical was blurred, the Scarab kings were tangible proof of the divine. Their advanced Anunnaki DNA was not just a myth, it likely manifested in tangible ways. Accounts speak of rulers with elongated skulls, unusual height, and profound wisdom that seemed beyond that of ordinary men. These traits were seen as physical markers of their celestial heritage. The ability to plan and execute the construction of massive pyramids, to develop complex calendars, and to understand the intricate movements of the stars were all attributed to this special genetic inheritance. They weren't just worshipped, they were seen as the living engines of civilization. The pantheon of Egyptian gods we know today is, in many ways, a family history of these founding lineages. The great Anunnaki schism between Marduk and the Thoth-Enki group was retold in the epic struggle between Horus and Set. Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, represented the rightful heir of the sacred benevolent bloodline established by the merged Anunnaki-Magi groups. Set represented the usurping force, the chaotic ambition embodied by Marduk's takeover back in Mesopotamia. Every ritual, every temple inscription was a reinforcement of this core story, the battle to uphold the divine order of the Scarab Kings against the forces of chaos. The Egyptian religion was, in essence, a political and historical record, veiled in allegory. This sacred bloodline was a thread that ran through the entire history of Egypt. The goal of every dynasty was to maintain its purity. This is why pharaohs often married their siblings or close relatives, not out of ignorance, but out of a desperate attempt to preserve the special genetic markers of their ancestors. This sacred lineage reached a fascinating climax much later with Pharaoh Akhenaten. His radical shift to monotheism, worshipping the sun disk Aten, and his own unusual physical depiction in art, with an elongated skull, slender limbs, and a prominent belly, harkens back directly to the descriptions of the original Anunnaki visitors. Akhenaten may have been trying to reboot the original religion of his ancestors, bypassing the pantheon to connect directly with the cosmic source. Today, as we dig through the sands of Egypt, we are not just uncovering stones and artifacts. We are piecing together a story of cosmic significance. The mysteries of ancient Egypt, its impossible architecture, its profound spiritual wisdom, and its god-kings, all point to an extraordinary origin event. The tale of Thoth-Enki, the Magi king lines, and the birth of the Scarab Kings is more than a myth. It's a potential roadmap to understanding a lost chapter of human history, a time when our ancestors walked with gods because, in a way, they were them. The legacy is written in stone, in myth, and perhaps even in our own DNA waiting to be rediscovered. The expedition continues.